Dear Len, it's a pleasure to have you with Global Loyalty Organization today, and can't wait to ask you insights from your recent study on the hidden economics of loyalty that Kyros Solutions just published. Can you just lay basic ground for us? What made you publish this, and what are the key things you're trying to address?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me here. I'm excited to have an opportunity to chat with you about the study that we did. So we at Kairos, we're a boutique actuarial consulting firm. We really sit at the intersection between the finance teams and the loyalty teams, helping them, of course, manage breakage and manage the liability, and then helping the CFO and the auditors get comfortable with that. But then also helping the marketers really understand, how can we optimize the incremental value that the loyalty program is actually creating. And we wanted to create this report because we're getting so many questions from the loyalty marketers around that question around incremental value. A lot of loyalty programs really struggle with actually putting a number on incremental value and proving it with credibility. And then also struggling to understand, like, what are the precise levers we can pull to actually optimize incremental value, right? And we do a tremendous amount of work here, and the work that we do with the liability actually is super important to the work you're doing with optimizing incremental value, because of course you can't optimize incremental value unless you deeply understand the cost of these points, right? And so what we want to do is put forth some analytics and some analysis and studies on incremental value and how to think about it. This is really just scratching the surface. We think there's so much more to talk about here. It's a really rich area for further research and analysis. We wanted to put something out here just to sort of get the dialogue started, and we hope it's useful for the industry.
Definitely, definitely. And I can assure you that the definitions is the one of the main fundamentals that a lot of the loyalty programs are struggling with. And from our side, the recent studies that GLO published among the global loyalty leaders, one of the main questions we got is how do you define customer lifetime value or
Yeah.
incremental value? And
Yeah.
we didn't have the unified definition. So I would love to hear from you your
Yeah.
and what's the best way to measure it?
Oh, that's such a great question. So that's actually the number one finding as well that we found is, like, people just don't, everybody's got their own definition, and it's not always sort of super robust in the thinking around how they're defining these things. The first thing that we found in our analysis is customer lifetime value truly is the economic language for loyalty, right? Engagement metrics and all these other things that loyalty programs are absolutely tracking today are important, but they're missing the linkage between the customer behavior that's driving the engagement and what it means in dollars and cents. Customer lifetime value is the number that does that, right? And the reason is, if you think about how a loyalty program creates value, it's in improving the customer retention, the loyalty of the customer, and letting that improved retention compound many periods into the future, right? We don't want to just drive people to come back, more people to come back next month. We, of course, want them to come back more than the month after that, the month after that, the month after that, the year after that, right? It's a long-term game. And everybody that works in loyalty knows that loyalty is a long-term game, right? But it's really important because we're playing this long-term game. We have some metric that can turn that long-term retention into dollars and cents. And that's all that customer lifetime value fundamentally is trying to do. It's just saying how much profit is a customer going to generate over some long future horizon and puts it into dollars and cents, right? That's fundamentally at the most abstract and highest level what customer lifetime value is.
And
There's
we,
a nuance here,
Mhm.
though. When we talk about customer lifetime value, what we really care about is bottom line profit, not top line revenue, right? And this is an area where a lot of people go wrong is they maybe are thinking about customer lifetime value as just top line revenue, but in the context of loyalty programs, we've got to take out not just the cost of goods sold, but also the cost of the points, right? Because ultimately what we care about is the profit you're getting back above and beyond what you gave them back in points, right? And that's the tie-in to liability. Like, you really can't understand customer lifetime value unless you deeply understand ultimate redemption rates and how those ultimate redemption rates change as customer behavior changes, right? So that's how we think about customer lifetime value. It's about the expected future profit that a customer is going to generate net of redemption costs. We talked about the definition of customer lifetime value. which is the expected profit that customer is going to generate net of redemption costs. Incremental value is a related concept, which is really important, right? The way we think about incremental value is it's the change in customer lifetime value due to the loyalty program, right? Because that's ultimately what the loyalty program is trying to do is change behavior so that retention improves and that improvement compounds over time. So what we really care about is a change in customer lifetime value due to the loyalty program. That's what we define as incremental value. So the first finding in our analysis and in our report really was, that customer lifetime value really is the economic language of loyalty programs, and incremental value is defined as the change in customer lifetime value, right? Um, that's sort of the core, and then all of our analysis was built on the premise of that, right? Trying to look at loyalty programs through that lens.
Mhm. And you worked with several programs, from the bigger one to the smaller ones. What do you see in the quality of data, on the key takeaways, what they struggle with? Can you shed us light on that?
Yeah, for sure. We have a wide range of clients, and so yes, we looked at all kinds of different programs, big and small, and across all kinds of different verticals. It's definitely skewed towards travel, but as opposed to say retail, but it is a large data set of loyalty programs all around the world. One of the biggest challenges, and this really was the second finding, is really incorporating the redemption cost component into the customer lifetime value calculation. Unless you have a deep understanding of liability, breakage, and ultimate redemption rates, and you have very sophisticated models that can actually translate customer behavior into ultimate redemption rates, it really becomes difficult to be able to understand customer lifetime value net of redemption costs, right? Luckily for our clients, this is a big part of what we do. We bring that discipline to the table. But it's clear from our analysis, what we're seeing is if you can't understand that component, it's really hard to understand that relationship between ultimate redemption rates and customer lifetime value, right? And it's really hard to understand ROI because if you think about how ROI is defined, the denominator of ROI is literally redemption costs, right? So that's the second really important highlight from our report is that your actuary is really important, not just for liability management, but also for understanding incremental value and figuring out how to optimize incremental value. The third really important finding, I think, was looking at what makes a good operational KPI. If we're really trying to optimize incremental value, what we should look for are KPIs that represent inflection points in customer lifetime value. So what we want to do is we want to study the customer journey and look for inflection points in the customer journey where customer lifetime value really changes, right? And this is very different from looking at the customer journey, how most companies do it. Most companies will look at the customer journey from a customer experience perspective, right? We're really looking at it from an economic perspective to find those places where customer lifetime value really jumps up when customers do certain behaviors, right? And those behaviors become really great KPIs, right? Because we can see, oh, when a customer, for example, first redemption is always a really important KPI. Whenever we see a customer have their first redemption, we see their customer lifetime value really jump up relative to lookalike people that don't redeem, right? And so that's an important inflection point. And we can track the percentage of customers that are actually doing that behavior and seeing, are we increasing it or are we decreasing it, right? We want it to go up, right? Because we know it's an inflection point. When they do that behavior, customer lifetime value really increases, and therefore we're creating incremental value, right? So we looked at all kinds in the analysis, we looked at all kinds of these inflection points. There were a couple obvious and simple ones. We looked at activation, the percentage of customers that actually join the program and then have an earning activity. We looked at return, which is just saying of the people that had their first earning activity, how many came back for another one? And then we looked at first redemption, which was the example I already used. What percentage of customers had got to the point of first redemption, right? And we use those as KPIs to operate really good operational KPIs to be able to track whether or not we're making progress in changing customer lifetime value and creating incremental value.
Len, one of the industry's beliefs is that actually high breakage might be good for loyalty programs. But you've done some very interesting analysis between the acquisition and breakage and customer loyalty value that actually indicates that it has to be taken in a whole. Can you shed the lights and educate us on this?
So the last really important highlight from the report, it's probably worth calling out, is what we saw with respect to the relationship between ultimate redemption rates and customer lifetime value. It's very clear that as your ultimate redemption rate increases, customer lifetime value also increases, right? And this, for a lot of people, is a very common misconception that increasing ultimate redemption rates are bad, right? A lot of people say, hey, if the ultimate redemption rate is increasing or if breakage rates are decreasing, this is a bad thing because it means our costs are increasing, right? But this is a very common misconception. It is not true, right? If you're just looking at costs and you're running your business just looking at costs, then yeah, you obviously don't want your costs to increase. But no good business person just runs their business looking at costs. You have to look at the net economic picture. Customer lifetime value, especially when you look at it net of redemption costs, as we already talked about, is the net economic picture. And what you can very clearly see, and what we see in our analysis, is as the ultimate redemption rate increases, customer lifetime value actually increases. It doesn't decrease. So it's actually excellent for business if customer lifetime value, or sorry, excuse me, if ultimate redemption rates are increasing, or said another way, if your breakage rates are decreasing, right? It means that customer lifetime value, more often than not, it means that customer lifetime value is increasing, which is a net positive for the business. I think the challenge for most loyalty programs is they don't have a good way to show that story, to tell a data-driven story that makes clear that increasing ultimate redemption rates means increasing customer lifetime value, right? And I think it's going to be very difficult for that misconception to be disproven until we get to that point. And that's a big mission that we're on here at Kyros, is making it easy for our customers to tell that data-driven story, so that everybody truly appreciates that increasing ultimate redemption rates is in fact a good thing.